last time we discussed, like I had a physical shop nearby my hometown, and I had to evacuate 2 years after because the thing was basically crumbling down. So I lost the shop, and after that I was like, okay, I want to go back to the online world, and my knowledge was in e-commerce, so I naturally shifted back to e-commerce, and A/B testing felt very natural to me. So yeah, I guess that's it, maybe to get started.
Absolutely, yeah. Kind of like a more personal note. Besides that, you've also been obviously heavily involved in the CRO world. We can totally call it that way. And I'm curious, like you also touch base on some I guess small elements of that story, but I'm curious about like the full story of like how you ended up running experimentation for Shopify brands and exclusively on Intelligems. We like, despite this being an Intelligems show, we try
Yeah.
to keep it as open and as I guess tool agnostic as possible in some ways. So
Yeah.
super curious about those little milestones that got you to end up I guess making that decision and that call.
Yeah. So to be frank, when I lost my shop, I had a lot of idea of what I wanted to do next, and I knew I wanted to do an agency because there are so many parts of like the agency business model that I like compared to the e-commerce or like other business models. I like the relationship aspect that we build in B2B that you don't always have with like B2C. Again, I've done e-commerce, I've had a physical shop. People come, you chat with them for a little while, but then they go. Whether with B2B, you build like long-term relationship, and it's something that I really appreciate. Also, you get to talk with people who are like very interested, and most of them really passionate about what they do. So those were like things that drove me into the agency world. And when I started, I thought about Google Ads because it's something that I used to do when I was doing e-commerce. But it's actually a conversation with a friend who's also an entrepreneur. He said, like, why don't you do zero and A/B testing? And back then I did not hear about this. Like, I remember when we were doing e-commerce in between 2017 and 2020, zero was not that famous as it is today, right? Like, I don't think we were doing proper A/B tests back then. It was just like finger in the wind and just like following our intuitions. So now, like, we've got tools like Intelligems to help us take better decisions. But basically, my friend said, zero A/B testing, you have to be good in multiple things, not only analytics, but also understanding like the big picture. You need to be good in design. You need to be able to do research. And also, like, I realized that having a background in e-commerce, having been in the shoes of the founder myself, like, I know how it is. I know like what the struggle is. And I also know that when you see the revenue, doesn't mean like this is the actual profit that they get. I know all the cost that is going with e-commerce, and they're spending a lot on ads, and that's why like zero is so important, especially knowing like CPM keep going up. So yeah, that's like how I got into e-commerce, into zero. And I remember my friend telling me like, hey, there is this app, it's native, Intelligent Shopify native. So I gave it a try, and since then never stopped with it.
Nice. Where you're like, what's your customer base like? Where are they based? You're in France, obviously, but I know you serve people in
Yeah,
Europe as well as in other markets. So how's that kind of distribution?
it's mostly in the US, but I got a couple brands, like a couple of big brands in Europe, which is also great because like we're in the same time zone. But I have no problem like working with Americans. I would love though to develop more like Asian, maybe Australian clients base. So far, I don't have any, but maybe in the future. But yeah, it's mostly just Americans. I've been working with a few British brands, but mostly Americans and Europeans.
I see, Andy. So
Yeah,
like the topic for this session, it's what I consider a really hot topic. Like, I'm coming from a place, I mean, like mentally,
yeah,
like where when you really want to achieve big things through experimentation and CRO applied to e-commerce, you basically run original research, talk to your users, hear what their struggles are, and also like what they are feeling in many cases, and while going through your experiences. And I consider myself part of the people that with that school of thought of like, you need to focus solely on your business most of the time, most of the cases, if you really want this to make a difference, and you if you really want to test stuff that can move the needle for your business. When we were preparing for this conversation, I asked you what a take of yours was, and that most people would disagree with. And you basically said, I'm paraphrasing you, that you think that I think you used the word spine, that spine on your competitors can also be a form of research and can inform a successful testing strategy. Tell me more about that, because like I'm really curious. I really need to hear more about what you have to say, because it's a really contrarian opinion that in most cases I don't think is necessarily effective. But that's what we're here for,
Yeah.
to have those kinds of discussions, those debates, and let the people make I guess their own conclusions. So tell us more about this idea of turning competitor research into winning tests.
Yeah, I do agree with you. Like it's always good to first start with your own customers, but I think that just blindly looking at like your own data, your own customers, and not looking at what the market is doing and not looking at what your competitors are doing is like a big mistake. And I've got like thousands of reasons that I could say about this, but I choose just I got three in mind that I think would be worth sharing with your audience, our audience. The first one I would say is a big one in my mind, is that creativity comes from inspiration and not from out of nowhere. It's like I was telling you, like it's very rare that someone wakes up in the morning and be like, oh, I've got a genius idea. It's usually like you get input from a lot of different places, and that helps you form your idea. And I want to share a little story about this. It's like my favorite artist is Kygo, is a Norwegian DJ. Maybe you know him.
I've heard
Uh,
of him.
and a couple years ago, I think it was 2020 or 2021, he released a masterclass where he's basically teaching music production. And obviously, when I saw this, like I had to get it and enrolled. And so I did the masterclass. It was incredible. Like I would do it again, and I would recommend anybody who is interested in music production to take it. I produced a couple songs, learned a lot. But there is like one thing that Kaigo said during the training that I think I remember for the rest of my life. He said that if you basically like if you want to find your own style, you have to imitate your heroes, like you have to imitate your role models a lot. And it's basically in this process where you iterate on trying to do like your heroes that you will make some mistakes, and during like while making those mistakes you will find what makes you different. Because sometimes you'll try to replicate like a song, for example, and you will think, well, actually I would replace the guitar with a piano, or I would put this into this. And I thought that was a great advice for like everything in life, especially in e-commerce, because when you think about founders, when they get started, most of the time they think about an industry or a brand they already know or a product they already know, and they think, I could do better than this. Like I like how they're doing, but I would do it like slightly different. And most of the time it's just like I've heard that from so many founders who told me, hey, please, when you work on my brand, just keep an eye on this brand and this brand and this brand, because this brand, they inspired us for our offer, and this one they inspired us for the layout of the website, and this one they inspired us for the navigation. And it's like creativity is like in the middle of all those insight that you pull from everything. And I think it's Salvador Dali who said that the ones who don't imitate anything, who don't imitate anybody, don't produce nothing. It's like if you want to create something unique, you have to try different things. You have to get inspiration from different things, and that's how you build something very unique. And I feel like in e-commerce, everyone's just constantly like copying each other. And the whole point of like competitor research is not copying the other. It's more so understanding like why they did this, like trying to understand like they did this for the customers. Like, would it make sense for our own customers? Like, does it match with something we've done or something we've learned in post-purchase surveys, heat maps, whatever? So I would say that's my first point. Like, competitor research matters a lot because that's where you find creativity. Another point I would say is that competitors are an extension of your experimentation program. So like if you look solely at your brand, you have a limited amount of pages, a limited amount of monthly sessions and monthly orders. But like your competitors, they have whole different teams and budgets and areas of focus. And so maybe you're just focusing on working on your product page because you found that the main bottleneck is add to cart rate. So you just like really focus on this in your A/B testing program. But maybe your competitors, they're focused on the cart because like for whatever reason. And you keep an eye on them and you realize that in their cart, they're trying something new. They've added a banner talking about like whatever. And you think like, why did they do this? And then you look at the website like 3 weeks after, 2 months after, and they kept the thing. And you look at Wayback Machine, like the website where you can see how websites look like in the past. And you're like, oh, they actually implemented this change. Now it's like their new version of the website. And so it's like thinking critically of what other are doing and then be like, oh, actually, like, could this be a great idea for our own brand? Like, for example, you see a brand that is pulling FAQs above the add to cart button on the product page. And you think, okay, like, would it make sense for customers to have the answers to certain questions above the fold? Like, I'm giving you a practical example. Like, I've done an audit for a big brand, a Shopify brand in Europe. They're Dutch, I think, but they're expanding in Germany. And so they're expanding very, very quick. I think they're doing like 1 million a month, something like this in Germany. And they wanted me to check what are the specificities of like German brands? Like, what do German brands do in this market that other brands don't do? And I realized doing competitor research that very often like the PDP on German brands are like very dense. There's lots of information there. Also, they often have like a PayPal icon or PayPal badge because people pay a lot with PayPal there. And it feels like maybe Germans like are more cautious when they're buying online and they want to really delve into details before they make a decision. And so it's those kind of things that you can understand if you look at different brands. So yeah, my second point, like I said, is that
May I stop you there for a second, because like I
talking a
think
lot.
what you're describing operates under the assumption that what other brands are ended up implementing are good additions. But like, how do you even know if they were measuring that, they were testing that, and that they were just not enthusiastically moving into the wrong direction? Because that happens all the time. So how do you like determine if whatever you're getting inspired by is actually relevant enough in the first place?
Yeah, I would say anyway, you'll never know about the data. Like, you don't know. You don't see the dashboard. You don't see like how they're doing. But what you can do is look at multiple brands and look at if there is like a new trend, like if people start to do the same thing. It's like, you remember like a couple of years ago when brands started to add like those small bubbles where you can check videos like on the product page. It's like
Yep.
at the beginning there were it looks like in Instagram, right, or TikTok or whatever. And at the beginning it was just like one brand or two brands doing this, maybe only one brand in your industry. But then you start to see like every brand doing it, and so you may question like, oh, we're not doing it, like everyone start to do it, there might be a reason. So then you can question and be like, would that be good for our customers? And to answer your question, I would say, you remember, like, how old are you, Carlos?
I'm 30. I'm about to be 36.
So you remember Blackberries?
I do, of course. I had a
Remember,
couple, I think.
of course. You remember when Apple started to release like the iPhones? It's like
I
Apple
do.
was saying
I
like
had
the
the
future.
first edition,
Yeah,
like smuggled into Colombia. First
the iPhone.
version of the iPhone. Yeah,
It was iPhone 2 or something like this, or iPhone
it
3.
was just iPhone. I
Okay,
mean,
okay.
there was no label because it was the only one that existed. It was, I
Wow,
think, starting 2008.
you had the OG. I never had like the first one.
Yeah,
I started
I
probably.
still have it somewhere.
Yeah, keep it.
I'm
You're studying like
so
Pokemon.
tiny.
Yeah,
It's funny because like it's so tiny compared to like modern phones, but it was so amazing back in the day.
and it keeps increasing in sizes. It's like at some point, like I don't know how we're gonna put this in our pocket, but it's like
Totally.
if you remember a BlackBerry, it's like when Apple started to release those first iPhones, Steve Jobs and like they were saying the future is going to be touch screens, and the guy at BlackBerry, they said no, like we're going to stick with like those physical keyboard, and they didn't buy into it. And at the same time, like I'm not a expert in this, but I think that Samsung, Xiaomi, like all the other brands, they saw what Apple was doing and they were like, we need to do the same, like that's it's like nobody knew before Apple made it that this was the thing that people were going to use in the future. And it's the same with e-commerce. There are things that are some brands are going to innovate. It's going to become the new standard in the future, but we don't know it yet. And so to loop this back to your question, which was like, how do you know if it's a good thing, if it's like positive or not? I think look at longevity. If they ship a feature and the feature is like there still after 2 months, 3 months, whatever, like potentially like there are chances like this is doing good to their brand. But again, you never know. But if you see multiple brands doing the same thing across different industries, usually it's a good hint. And also like we're in experimentation, so worst case scenario, you find an idea, looking at different websites, you think, oh, that could be interesting for us because we can match this with some of our research about our customers. You test something, worst case scenario, it's a losing test. That's like the only risk you're taking. But the upside is tremendous. Like I've seen, I think it was Opoli last year, who started to implement some videos like in their collection pages. So instead of just seeing like the dress on a model, you would see like the model doing something like a dance, or you know it's just like a video. And I don't know if that was a positive test or not, but I've seen so many brands do this afterward. And so my guess is that many of those brands probably A/B tested, and for some of them it did not work. For some it worked, and that's the whole point, I think.
Right. Yeah. Like I like that. Like you're still suggesting that whatever you get inspired by still becomes a test. So it's something that you don't just blindly go and implement like crazily. Like you would
Oh,
still measure its effectiveness. But I think another way how people would push back on this, and I was even wondering, like, where you were describing what those brand owners, those stakeholders wanted, like, if it was your, like, I guess your responsibility as a CRO manager to also push back on some of those stocks, because you cannot just keep just copying every shiny thing that anybody else is doing. But um, since you're still framing those ideas or those kind of like inspiration elements as test, how do you ensure that this is the best kind of like use of your time and energy? Though, like, you're running an agency, you have obviously, I guess, a limited amount of hours available to dedicate to each client, and you can only tackle certain things. Like, so how or why do you know if, like, copying something that a competitor is doing or just getting inspired by it is a better use of your time than maybe running original research, having interviews with customers, running post purchase service? Like, how do you weigh the importance of those elements?
Yeah, that's a good question. Um, like I said at the beginning, I think it's of major importance because it's our industry. So you want to know what's going on. As an agency, I think it's about like having good people. Like I have good people helping me with this. I've got Kate who is always telling me like, "Hey, I've seen this on this website. Like, have you seen what Comfort is doing on their collection page? Like, have you seen this and that?" And so like as a team, like we work and we try to figure out like if there are patterns on like navigation, collection page, product page, etc. So that's like one thing. And I would say that yeah, it's a matter of priority, and also like having a proper routine where you know like like once a week you check this. Like for me, it's Kate who is doing it, but we talk about it. But I think it's so important. It's just like being obsessed with whatever industry you're in. I told you that I had a physical shop before the thing was about to crumble down, and I remember like walking in the street in the morning and like looking at what everybody else is doing, and it's very funny the bridge between like e-commerce and physical commerce. There are like many similarities, and for example, in the physical commerce space, you will see that the front of their shop, they're constantly updating it, like Christmas sale minus 40%, Easter sale, buy two get one free, like constantly doing this is the same as like the homepage in e-commerce. And when you enter a shop, a physical shop, you'll notice they do the same thing as e-commerce, like the navigation, the way we optimize on a website. In physical shop, they optimize the labels, like here are the t-shirts, here are the sweaters, here are the pants. And if people come in the shop and cannot tell in like 1 second if what they're looking for is in the shop, like is this a shop for women or for men? Like if you cannot tell this like right from the beginning, you just won't buy. So I'm a little bit going somewhere else from your
Brett.
question, but the whole point was, first it should be like you should understand that it is a priority to look at what other brands are doing. And I like to think about again like the BlackBerry. If you were working on BlackBerry and everyone was saying, "Hey, we don't care what everybody else is doing. We just keep going with what we do, like physical keyboard." It's like you're just missing the whole point of like the revolution that is going on. That all smartphones are going to be with touch screens and all this, and e-commerce is the same. So it's like prioritizing customer research in your research that you normally do with heat maps analysis, data analysis, like all the rest. Having someone reliable in your team who can help you with this is very important. Discussing. Also, I've got like a network of founders, and they often say like, "Hey, have you seen like this website, like what they're doing now?" And I'm always like checking a lot of websites to keep myself informed. But yeah, I don't know if that answer well your question, but a great way also is to have a swipe file, and that's something I'm gonna give people after this live, where they can access our internal library of brands, and it's ranked basically by industries. So if for example you are in fashion, you can click on fashion, you will see like ranked by revenue. So like if your brand's making 20 to 50 million a year, you can see like all the brands doing better than you, etc. So I guess like having a good swipe file, that helps a lot. And then when analyzing those brands, very interesting how. Sorry, I'm looking at the
Yeah,
comments.
just brought Aries' question to the mix because I
Yeah,
think it's analogous to what you're describing, and I can help framing that question in the sense of like, okay, like okay, you got a point. I'm not like still like fully sold, but I like the approach and
yeah,
how you frame it. My question, and I think this could be kind of like paired with Aries' question. There is like what to pay attention for, because like I think you have alluded to a lot of like potentially the visual aspect of certain shopping experience, but like how about like what they do with their pricing, and like what kind of like other strategies you usually get inspired by.
yeah. Well, each brand is unique, but it's good to have like a pyramid where, like for example, for a supplement brands that is doing a lot of landing pages, having a look at what all the brands are doing with the landing pages should be like at the top of the pyramid. If you're just like classic fashion brands, like you want to look at the offer, and like the more you go down on the pyramid, the least things will be important, and that really depends on the brand. But obviously, it's always like looking at the offer, looking at the copywriting, looking at the visuals that they use. So there are like critical elements to look for, but the way we like to do it is when we work with clients is we identify where like is the bottleneck in the funnel. Sometimes it's on collection pages, like people cannot find the product they want. Sometimes it's on product page, sometimes it's in cart. And when we know where we have the bottleneck, we try to solve that specific problem. And that's where usually when we do competitor research, we go with intention, like if we were looking for gold, like trying to find like different things. And so obviously you focus on a specific page, you go through many different competitors, top industry leaders, direct competitors, cross industries is good because sometimes they can have ideas that are not applied to your industry. But yeah, I think like having a clear hierarchy of the priorities, that's something very important when doing. I hope that answer. I cannot see it anymore, but like the question from Ari.
I'll putting them there.
Yeah,
I know we're about to wrap up, Andy, but this was a very insightful conversation. Like I like how opinionated you are about this, and I'm sure like people will still get inspired by some of the, uh, I guess, ways of working that you described. Before we end up the show and you take a look at the question, like I'm curious about where do you think this is all headed, especially with AI? Like one of the things you were very excited about that you mentioned was, for example, building variants with Intelligems AI editor and like kind of like vibe coding some of the changes that you had in mind. So what's exciting for you right now, and how do you think everything we discuss might be subject to change or might be changing over the next few years?
yeah. I think everything we've said will still be relevant because yeah, we always need to, like, I think competitor research is a huge database available to you for free of customer research. So it will always be there. And I will say, to end the chat about all of this, that it's important to not form ideas, but form hypotheses. And now, like, the thing that I'm really obsessed at the moment is not agentic e-commerce. Like, everyone's talking about this on LinkedIn. I'm way more interested in like the visual builder that you guys built at Intelligems, because I feel a bit bad for developers. But if we compare 2026 year to date compared to 2025, I'm using probably like 20% the dev work that we had last year, because like we can build things in the visual builder like way faster. Sometimes I spend like 5 minutes really like tweaking things around, and I realize, whoa, something that would have taken my dev 2 days last year, I can do it like in 5 minutes. So that is fantastic. And so I guess there will come a time where people will shop directly with AI, ChatGPT, Claude, whatever. But we're not there yet. Like the traffic's still going to the website. So for now, like we're still optimizing the website. And of course, we will adapt, like where the traffic will be, we will adapt this. There are some changes that are coming, and yeah, eager to see where we're going with this.
Awesome. I hit on the music button accidentally, but that's just a sign that we're about to wrap this conversation up. Andy, thanks so much for joining. We knew beforehand that we could keep going like for
Of
a
course.
while, but I'm opinionated about keeping this short and sweet, as I like to call them. So I will definitely have you in a different time. For those who are interested in what Andy described, I'm assuming you will drop those in your,
Yeah.
I guess your feed. So please do that. And otherwise, let the people know where they can find you And yeah, just that would be it for today.
Yeah, I'm gonna give you my phone number. No,
Uh,
kidding. No, no. No, you can just find me on LinkedIn, and I probably have my email there. But otherwise, you can just visit my website, blueway-labs.com, or LinkedIn is good. Just send me a DM on LinkedIn. And yeah, hope to talk to you soon. And Carlos, thanks a lot for the invitation. It was great talking with you again, and I guess see you in the next one.
Thank you, Andy. See you in the next one. Thank you for joining us today. And thanks everyone for joining us one more time at Live with Intelligems. We'll see each other next week with another fantastic guest. Thanks so much.
Cheers.